Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at Food Comics #1. This was published in 1980 by Leonard Rifas' EduComics. EduComics, probably, that's how it's pronounced. Leonard Rifas started this comic company, publishing underground comics that were all educational, hence the name. And I gotta say, this is one of the better ones I've seen. I've seen a bunch of his edu-comics. And, educational comics, they can be kind of pedantic, not that entertaining. But there's a lot of good stuff in here. Really good list of contributors. Starting off with R. Diggs. Pretty nice cover here. R. Diggs did kind of like political cartoons for the underground papers. So he had this very slick, almost editorial cartoonist style. Pretty nice. So, of course, these are all going to be about food and the problems of food production and malnutrition and just all things involving food. We have a little introduction from Leonard Rifas, a little drawing by him for this ad for other edu-comics. And we start off with the Agribiz game. This is by Tom Chalkley, who I have never seen before. Well, I guess I have because I do own Every Weirdo. And apparently, according to Grand Comics Database, that's the only other thing he ever did. In a later issue of Weirdo, he drew a story or contributed some art. Kind of a damn shame because this guy's really good. He's a really nice style. And I wish I could find more of him. This is pretty much almost like an educational comic about how the agricultural business, the corporations have pretty much taken over all the mom and pop farms. And because of that, prices rise. They're depleting the soil. They're basically just doing what corporations do. It's just like a virus. They just consume things and ruin everything. So it kind of gives us a whole history of the rise of supermarkets and these agricultural businesses. It's got a lot of jokes in it, though, so it's not just all, just facts and stuff. A lot of nice visuals. So, also talking about, like all the unhealthy food being pushed onto people from these agribiz entities. Think about all the commercials we watched as kids for sugary cereals. Really like this guy's art. And then at the end, they give us, perhaps they give us some strategies to fight these guys, these giants. Because they've even got Uncle Sam in their back pocket, as we see here. It almost looks like he's coming out of the butt crack of this Agribiz Goliath. But basically it's like, boycott these corporations, back to farm workers, go to farmers markets more. So it's a hopeful, I guess, thing. We see the Goliath topple. And, of course, this didn't happen. They're still just as strong as ever, probably stronger. This next one is Hungry for Fairness. This is written and drawn by Leonard Rifas, and this is pretty god-awful. Leonard Rifas just never was that good an artist. There's another story in this comic where he does like kind of funny funny vegetable comics. It's okay. You should stick to that. But when he tries to draw real people, this is just hard to look at. And this comic is very just like reading a pamphlet handed out by the government or something. It has all these footnotes. And this is basically just talking about how this guy's experience, let's assume it's Leonard Rifas, his experience of visiting Guatemala in 1974. He kind of saw how this whole food pyramid works. Not the healthy food pyramid, the food pyramid of wealth. And how just all the small farmers with their little tiny bits of land, they could barely make ends meet. and there was huge fundistas, or fundias. Those are basically mega farms. So there'd be a handful of people owned, like, I don't know, 80% of the land. And just the poor people in Guatemala are just malnourished. Not very good. I would just as rather read a little article about all these facts. This is really nice. Please Stop Me Before I Sweeten Again by Tim Boxell. There's research by Leonard Rifas, but Tim Boxell took that research and made the script and art for this. I really like seeing Tim Boxell draw, like, kind of funny. He has a really nice style for, like, light humor. And basically we see sugar. It's this guy with a sugar cube head, but he represents all sugar. And he's at the psychiatrist and just talking about how he's ruined so many lives, even killed millions of people, because, you know, sugar's not good for you. Also brings up the fact that 2/3 of the reason why we had slaves in North America is for sugar production. I like this panel. We see these two slaves, and they're like, sorry, pal, there's nothing funny about slavery. So all the other ones have goofy, you know, like, funny things illustrating the points. But I kind of like that meta thing of them just saying, no, we're not going to do that. And, you know, I guess sugar is pretty unhealthy. Obviously, it makes you gain weight. But it does other things to your body, like leads to indigestion, kind of affects your brain, kind of makes you dumber when you're on a sugar high. So he talks about all that. But I love this artifice of having sugar basically bearing his soul and just feeling guilty about it. Of course, the people who love sugar most are the little acids inside our mouth. So talking about tooth decay, about how many teeth are pulled in a year. It's I guess in the UK alone, 4 tons of teeth are extracted every year, which is the weight of a full-grown Indian elephant. And there's the pile of teeth. Talks about how it, you know, the effects I was just talking about, deplete your energy. And then he just breaks down. He's like, I don't want to be a killer, doc. And the doctor just says, you're not so bad. You're sweet. And people like you a lot. And Sugar says, but I don't want to hurt them anymore. And the psychiatrist just says, sorry, son. They're at your mercy until they learn some self-control, which is never going to happen. Am I crazy? But I see weird flashes of, like, B Club Band. Like, if B Club Band, like, drew more realistically. It probably doesn't look like it at all, but weird, like, these faces for some reason remind me of it. Mostly, though, it's just a very nice style. And I wish there probably are more of this kind of Tim Boxell type strips. I just have to find them. This is really interesting because remember, guys, this came out in 1980, and this is probably one of the earliest translated manga in America. After I Saw It, which Comix published, the true story of the Hiroshima bombings, bombings. And this is by a guy named Akira Narita, translated by the manga prophet Fred Schott, and it's a little help from Leonard Rifas. I don't know what he did. But this is called When Socrates Drinks, Everybody Drinks. And this is about pests and how our trying to deal with pests, which basically eat 40% of the world's crops. Our pesticides and our war against pests, of course, is making the problem worse. The pests are getting stronger. They're becoming resistant. And but I got to comment, guys, look at this cartooning. This guy's amazing. I never heard of Akira Narita, but I really like this art, especially just all the imaginative ways he draws these pests. There's all different kinds. The interesting thing about this is, I guess a lot of the pesticides kill these predator bugs. So then they usually keep these other bug species in check. But without them around, now even these harmless bugs are becoming pests. So it's just increasing the problem. I like these guys too. Almost like Hunt Emerson, like this really interesting find here. And I'd like to get some more Akira Narita. This art's beautiful. Really like this. I have a feeling this is a reprint from one of those like whole Earth reviews or something, because it's our Crumb, Mr. Appropriate. It says it's written by a committee of 6. So Mr. Appropriate does his homework. And this is based on a true story. There's no one actually named Mr. Appropriate, but our Crumb has dubbed him so. And I guess this guy's just a well-meaning dude who keeps trying to fight the system and failing. He even gets elected to state office, but he can't take the politics. He tries to fight a local coal-fired power plant in his town. He loses because, they got more money and better lawyers. But then he decides to try to make a food co-op. And because there's all these farmers with excess vegetables they can't sell. And who would be against that, right? Well, it turns out the city council turns it down, making up all these lies, saying that a lot of those vegetables are stolen and whatever. Turns out one of the heads of the city council is a huge agribiz guy, which Mr. Appropriate finds out doing lots of research. And with that information, he successfully convinces the rest of the council to allow a food co-op. So just showing how so many of these problems we have with food distribution, food consumption, people not getting enough, people having too much waste. It's just because big businesses sticks their finger in. It's just let them have a food co-op. That'll take care of a lot of problems. This is some really sharp art Crumb work, by the way. Completely clean. This is G-rated art Crumb. And it's just really nice. The reason why I think it's a reprint from Whole Earth Review or one of those type magazines is because it's very small. I think this was supposed to be a magazine-sized comic. And, they shrunk it down. So it is a little hard to read the lettering, but then again, I'm 57. It's probably not hard for you youngins out there. Here we have a half-page strip from someone named Maura Wright. This is just a recipe for wonderful vegetarian gravy, and that's all it is. So it's just kind of like the dumbest kind of comic you could make. You could have just printed this recipe. None of this helps at all. I guess there are little tips here, but she could have added that in parentheses. I guess she could draw pretty okay, with that pointillistic style, but just, I don't know. I guess that's useful information, though. And this one's really nice. Another refill, please, telling us about the problems with coffee and caffeine. And it's by Larry Rippey. Wait, am I right on this? Yes. And Larry Rippey, this guy, I think I saw him as a kid in the few undergrounds I had. Just he's okay. The more I see of this guy, the more I really like him. This cartooning is wonderful to me. And basically we see these two people talking, and Mr. Coffee Nerve shows up. Now, I don't know if you guys know this. Mr. Coffee Nerves was an advertising-created character in the 40s and 50s. I think it was for Sanka or Postum. Even then, they knew coffee wasn't the best thing to drink all the time. And so this character was created and in these comic advertisements. I think they were Johnstone and Cushing Productions, the advertising firm that hired all the great cartoonists, And so I assume he's in the public domain. So he's there, and he's telling us all these things about what coffee does. And meanwhile, there's people are reading in a newspaper while they're drinking coffee, all these horrible things the coffee companies are doing about the pesticides used on coffee. But they keep drinking coffee. And I love this art as they're getting more and more jittery. It's almost like they're shaking themselves out of existence. They're shaking themselves into abstract art. This is some really fun cartoony here. I really like this one. And then we have this center spread, which I'll look at later because this combines the flip comic of this. And this is the upside down part. So let's go to the flip side. This one's Food Comics without the X, spelled old school. Maybe because this side's supposed to be more kid-friendly. And as we can see by this lettered Rifas cover, it does seem more kid-friendly. This is actually quite a fun story. This is, Tommy and Carl in Prisoners of Candyland. And it's kind of, I think he has a nice little cute, funny animal style, kind of interesting. And we see Tommy and Carl. And Carl's the carrot, Tommy's the tomato. And Tommy finds some candy just floating in the river, and he's all gung-ho about it. He's like, all right, candy. And Carl's like, he's the skeptical smart one. He's just like, you shouldn't eat all that. And in the bag of candy, Tommy finds a note that just says help. And so they decide to find this candy island. Is that what it's called? Sorry. And they walk farther than they've ever walked before. And finally, they see it. Here's Candy Island. They have a perilous journey across the river to get there, or the lake, whatever, the body of water. Giant fish are trying to eat them. They make these stilts. It's just kind of like this cartoony. It's not, Leonard Rifas is not the best, but it's kind of fun. It looks like something that would be in some Golden Age kiddie comic or something. They make it to Candyland. A candy cop basically throws them in the pokey in the wagon. He's like, it's illegal to come here, unless you come through customs. When they get inside, they recognize another occupant. It's Shuggy Beat. And it turns out he sent the note, the help note. So they dump them all in jail. And this jail is made from hard candy, so they lick their way through. Or to weaken the floor at least, and then they crack through. Carl is the first one to escape. Some cops stop him, and he says, I'm a Candy Island soldier disguised as the vegetable for the troops who will invade the vegetable kingdom. Because that's why, what Shuggy Beat found out, that the Candyland army is going to invade the vegetable kingdom. And of course, our heroes want to stop that. So the soldiers head off. Carl's like, oh no, I'm too late. And he steals some documents from the king's palace. And he basically said, even though the king is using double talk, he's like, oh, we just want to spread democracy to vegetable land, just like we do when we invade countries. He basically, Shuggy Beat finds this document that says, you're going to turn us all into sweeteners. The beets and the corn. Because, of course, corn is used as a sweetener. So the king says, lock them up, but they run away. They get in a boat, and they escape back to vegetable land, and when they show up, everything's fine. They're singing and they're dancing, and the vegetables tell them what happened. They said, the candy soldiers came, tried to take over, but they didn't know how strong we were. Even the kids could knock them over. And now they're having a victory feast. And we see all the kids eating these, I guess this is the remnants of the candy soldiers. So kind of just like a weird cannibalistic ending where the cute little vegetable kids are like gorging themselves on their enemy's flesh, which is candy. Kind of like this little story, kind of fun. This one's called Vitaman. And this is written by Leonard Rifas and drawn by Steve Leialoha. So some nice art, which Steve Leialoha always provides. And we see this family. They're trying to get this billy goat to the farmer's fair. What do they call those things? Like there's a fair, like an FFA thing. And their car is broken down, their truck. Vitaman starts fixing it, but then Mega Vitaman shows up. He's this big, dumb, jockey-looking guy. And he says, oh no, I could do it much better. I'm even stronger. But of course he overdoes it and he ruins the tire. So then he says, oh, that doesn't matter. I'll fly the whole truck there with all you guys inside. So they make it to the fairgrounds. And I guess the goat's not feeling that well. Probably from being around Mega Vitaman. And then we see the kids inspect their plants, which I guess they left there a day before or something. They're not doing too well. Vitaman hits them with a little Vitamagic, and it looks, he totally perks them up. They look great. But then Mega Vitaman says, oh, I'll do even better. And he overdoes it once again. Kind of like that lettering there, boing. And basically, it looks like he mutated the plant into this monster plant. And the kids are like, I don't know. And then it starts dying already. So, once again, Mega Vitaman overdoes it. And this is a frog jumping contest. And then Mega Vitaman shows up as basically he's turned himself into a Mega Vita frog. And the guy says, you can't enter. You're not a real frog. And then finally Mega Vitaman, or Mega Vita Frog, I should say, finally leaps away. He's pissed off. But everything goes back to normal. Because basically he was just screwing everything up. So I guess this is like about Mega Vitamins. They talk about here this thing called hypervitaminosis, which is actually a condition when you have too many vitamins. That could be a problem. I guess that's what he's talking about, but using this fun superhero, idea. So I guess this is more like the kid version of food comics. Then we have this kind of waste of space by Trina Robbins, a rainy day carrot cake. And she shows these two kids how to make kind of a healthy carrot cake that I gotta be honest, probably doesn't taste very good. Just the fact they're using whole wheat flour, I'm out. I don't want a cake made with whole wheat flour, sorry. And that's all it is. Just telling us the recipe. It is in rhyming form when Trina feels like it. Sometimes there's no rhyme. But, yeah, just a waste of space. And kind of some of the most lackluster Trina Robbins art I've ever seen. So, I don't know. Sorry to be so harsh, but I wish there was something else there. But this is nice. I always love Harold S. Robbins' work. He popped up in undergrounds here and there. Not enough for my liking. Always incredibly detailed comics where, he worked on this page for a long time. Look at all these little panels. Really amazing lettering. This is called Always Chew Your Food. The illuminating history of Horace Fletcher, the father of Fletcherism. The science of magisterial and mandibular mastication. We have a host here, Professor Brainard, he's been in many Harold S. Robbins comics. And basically they're telling us the story. I think this was a real guy named Horace Fletcher. He shows as a little boy, his mom is swatting him saying, don't forget to Fletcherize, always chew your food. So this is the guy who came up with that whole thing that you hear when you were a kid. I think you still hear it. How you're supposed to chew your food, maybe sometimes 50 times. Certain people say it's good for you, it's better for you. And I guess he was a middle-aged guy, wasn't feeling too good. And then he came up. He read this quote from Gladstone, the British statesman. And he says, our teeth are 32. This nature clearly granted us one tooth for every chew. So he took it a step further and started masticating his food 50 to 60 times every bite. And it seemed like it kind of worked. He lost 40 pounds or 65 pounds. He felt better. And so he started writing books and appearing in magazines talking about his new method. And it really took off. Celebrities were espousing his principles. Whole prisons were making their inmates do this because they would save money on food. Huge rich guys like Rockefeller were doing it. But eventually he kind of got crazier and crazier. And it got to the point where he wouldn't eat a lot of foods because they were hard to chew, if they were harder to chew. And, here's his wife, like, he's basically in a hospital bed. And he's just been drinking milk. Well, she actually chews the milk, too. So pretty sad. And of course his health is deteriorating, like, horribly. He's losing weight, too much weight. He checks into a clinic, and it gets to the point where he's spitting up the food after it loses its flavor. So he's chewing it, but not even ingesting it. So of course he's starving. He's basically starving himself to death. His teeth were rotten. His bowels blocked with sludge, which doesn't make sense. It seems like it should be all coming at you if you're chewing it that much. I don't know. And he died. And that's the little story of Horace Fletcher. Kind of an interesting little true life tale, but so beautifully drawn by Robbins. I love his stuff. I really hope somebody puts out a collection of his stuff. I don't think he even had his own comic. He was always just popping up here and there. And here's that little maze. So I guess this fits in with the whole children thing. Can you help Clyde the chicken and Elwood the elf find their way home? And here they are. And it's just a maze. It seems to be a labyrinth. I can't remember what you call those things. Made out of, bushes and stuff. And it has all these spices and whatever. All these flora. Fennel, chamomile. This is Grand Comic Database thinks this is drawn by Leonard Rifas. It probably is. It's pretty nice. I kind of like that drawing of these two. And it's not bad. So that's it for Food Comics, guys. I think this is supposed to be the front cover. I'm just assuming that because the editorial's on the inside front cover of this side. So pretty nice underground. Kind of light, but also some really nice cartooning in here. And some of them were actually pretty entertaining. And I actually learned a thing or two. So it's kind of like one to grow on there. So it's like the end of a Fat Albert episode. Hope you guys liked looking at this, and hope to see you next time here at the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.